We can talk about what we're thankful for. I'm going to talk a little bit about that idea since we're coming up here on Thanksgiving. It seemed like the right time to stop and think about it, but to think about it as a humanist. Thanksgiving, of course, is a classic American holiday, right? This is not necessarily celebrated, certainly not this time in other countries. So this is a classic time of this. I think this is one of my favorite American holidays that come up here, largely because it's focused on food. I think this is something we often all have in common, something very basic, something very central. And so it's something that brings us together that way. Unlike some of the other holidays, the whole holiday is available to secular people, right? There isn't necessarily a religious meaning or a religious tradition that it's drawing out of. So it's available to humanists in a way that some of the other holidays aren't necessarily or don't take any conversion. So I think there's some definite positivity there, right? And so it's a good time to stop and think about gratitude, right? There's a bunch of people doing 30 days of gratitude and these various things. Okay, so brief review of things I think have gotten out there into the culture quite a bit. The gratitude is good for you, right? That practicing gratitude is good for you. I think most people know that at this point. It improves resilience. People deal better with difficult situations if they stop and think about what they're grateful for. They are stronger. They are able to make more rational decisions. They get less sort of overwhelmed. Like, we know that this stuff is out there. I think this is pretty widely known. But here's what people don't tell you about that. When you look at the actual scientific research, it only works up to 3 or 4 times a week. You do it more than that, and the effectiveness drops off. It doesn't help very much after that. So when people talk about practicing gratitude, doing 30 days straight, that's not necessarily what the science is telling you. It's like 3 or 4 times and it starts to drop off. It starts to not work as well. It starts to not have these sorts of greater positive effects that people are often talking about. Now, we've got to speculate about why. The researchers who've looked into this don't have the answers to exactly why. They just know the correlations, right? It's not there. It's not something that's there. I think what's going on underneath here is that it is hard to keep it genuine. It is hard to keep it something that you're not doing simply as a matter of ritual or a matter of form. Like, I said I was doing this 30 days of gratitude. I guess I got to write something up, right, and put it on there. I think you become numb to it, right? If you do it every single day and every single time, it's not actually live for you, so it starts to drop off in terms of its effectiveness. Because underneath this, I think there's some things we've got to look at. One of them, it is hard to deal with people and things the way they are. I think this is something that you have to face. There is a lot out there that is difficult and deeply unfair, right, in terms of what you can see. So I think the criticisms of the Thanksgiving story in terms of the pilgrims, right, coming over and the Indians giving them dinner, and this is all very thankful for this. I think we've all heard lots of the criticisms of that story. That's not what happened, right? That's not how it worked. That's not what the case of what actually was there. There was a lot of war, conflict, genocide, taking advantage of each other. It's awfully hard to be thankful for a world where that is normal, right? There's a lot of suffering out there that doesn't need to be there. There are a lot of people who are petty and kind of mean about various things. And so it can be very difficult, I think, to be thankful and to look at the world like it really is. Right? To say, yeah, I can see this and continue to be attached for it. Something else to say, these sorts of arguments like, you'll be happier if you are grateful, seem to get something wrong about the attitude, right? Gratitude is not something you should do for instrumental reasons. That is, you shouldn't do it so that you could be happy. It's not what we call in philosophy forward-looking. It's not that you're trying to achieve a result. It should be backward-looking. Right? You are grateful because of what was done, because of what you got, because of what somebody gave you, right? So it's got to be grounded in something to actually be grateful for. It's not something you can do because you want to be happy, right? That seems to get it the wrong way around. So maybe that's part of the trouble. I think this can be particularly challenging for secular people. So some of the research that gets done out there, right, is if you think of yourself as lucky, it tends not to make you as happy and as resilient as if you are grateful. And that can be a real challenge for secular people, right? Because if there isn't sort of a God to be grateful to in the way that they're thinking about it, then they are lucky, right? And they feel lucky when they get good things and not necessarily grateful. So that can be a challenge, right, that's bedded into this. Sometimes talking about cultivating gratitude cultivates a sort of subservient attitude, right? That is, you should be grateful for every little thing that you get, right? Seems to say, don't claim too much, don't take too much, don't think too much about yourself, right, in some way or another. So there are troubling aspects here. I think the biggest thing that the sort of 30 days of gratitude and things like this can end up doing is creating a feeling of an obligation to appear grateful, right? It's like, in order to be sort of socially appropriate, I have to have this feeling, at least I have to fake it, right? I have to pretend like I'm one of these things when I'm not actually feeling that way. And that's really, I think, harmful, because then you're not able to acknowledge how you actually feel, because you're constantly trying to pretend to be what you think you should be, right? Trying to pretend to be something that you shouldn't be. So a lot of times when people talk about gratitude and experiencing gratitude and being grateful and all of this kind of stuff, I think it goes very, very light, very sweet, very fluffy, and isn't able to dig into some of these realities that people are dealing with. I think it easily becomes a sort of facade, right, of gratitude that people put over stuff rather than diving into it. But if we're going to be happy, particularly as secular people, right, what do we have to do? One of the things is accept ourselves as evolved creatures, right? We evolved. That means we've got a brain, we've got tendencies, we've got instincts that aren't designed for particular purposes, but evolved because they were successful in some or other circumstance. One of those tendencies is to be problem-focused, right? We look around our room, we look around our world, and we say, that's a problem, and that's a problem, and that's another problem we have to deal with. And this helps. I can see how this helps with evolution in a great way, right? I mean, then problems get dealt with, right? You anticipate, you look forward, you get all of these sorts of things. But evolution doesn't care about your happiness. So you're going to find problems where there are none, right? You're going to focus on the problems when the problems are small and the good things are not. So we have a biology that tends us towards problems. I think we have a biology that tends towards fear as well. Fear is a very strong emotion that we're easily drawn into. Right, that a little bit of something scary can easily take over all of the other sorts of things that are going on in our lives, in our experiences, and how we work. So I think our biology tends in those directions. And so here's one way that thankfulness can go wrong. You're not helping yourself deal with these problems if you are thankful, right, for a wall. If you are thankful for door locks and security. Because notice what you're doing when you're thankful for these kinds of things. You're reinforcing your fear, right? You're legitimizing your fear. You're building your fear up, right, when you're able to do this. So gratitude can focus you on the wrong things if you don't step back a bit and think about what kinds of things you really should be grateful for. I'm grateful for this wall, and I'm grateful for the security, and I'm grateful that, those people that scare me are way over there and far away. I'm reinforcing, right, all of my fears along those lines. Martha Nussbaum created a phrase that I love that's really helpful. She wrote a book and called it The Fragility of Goodness, right? And so this is what the book dives into, is the way that goodness is really, really fragile. It's constantly about to break. It's constantly about to come apart. And I think that is something that we should think about, focus on, and try to deal with when we want to start thinking about gratitude. So Epictetus makes this point about the rich man. The rich man is the one with few desires, few needs, not the one with a lot of money. So this is what I want us to think about. Be grateful that you have enough. I think that's something that most of our tendencies try to drive us away from, right? Try to drive us towards thinking we do not have enough. We need more of this or more of that, or if we could solve this problem or that problem, right? Or overcome this or that fear. Gratitude done right is coming back to say, you know what? It's okay, right? Whatever I've got now, however I am now, it's okay. It's not a problem. It's not something I have to change at the moment. It's not something I have to destroy at the moment. It's not something I have to worry about at the moment. I'm all right. So being grateful for having enough helps counter some of our biological tendencies, helps us recognize the goodness that we do have, right, rather than focusing on the goodness that we don't have, right, can help calm you down a bit. Now, where I think the research is helpful is it sounds dangerous, right? If you say, I have enough, then you stop, right? You don't deal with any problems. People don't seem to do that. So it doesn't seem to happen that way. You're actually better at dealing with your problems when you recognize that you have enough. So if this problem gets resolved or not, it'll be okay, right? You don't have to panic. You can work on it. It'll be nice. It'll be helpful. It'll be good. But it'll be okay, right? You have enough. Another feature, of course, of the fragility of goodness, or thinking about any of these things along these lines, is that everything we've got is temporary. That is, what you have, you're going to lose, whether it is your health or your money or your security or your safety. I think this is part of the problem of being thankful for a wall or your door locks. Or say sooner or later, these things are all going to fail. But you can be grateful for the time that you do have, right? I'm grateful that I have this. I'm grateful that this was possible. That if it doesn't continue, well, at least I had it for that long, right? So there's areas that you can help to think about the goodness in your life, the pieces that are there. Get past the things that are hard to feel grateful for, and there are lots of them out there, right? And look at the things and say, wow, there are things in my life where I do have enough, right? Where there is enough for me. Where it's good that I've had it, even if I don't necessarily keep it. It's good that I've had it, even if there are troubles ahead that might take it away. I'll try to avoid it. I'll try to keep it. But even if I don't, it's good that it lasted this long. So I think these are points that you can focus on, right? Without getting necessary. I mean, it's hard not to get numb to it, right? If you make a routine out of it, it's hard. So you've got to keep it alive, right, to think about these things. But I think something you can focus on, something you can be grateful for. So this is the downside of Thanksgiving, right? When we get all the family together and people get a lot of ambitions about what they're going to cook and what they're going to make and what it's going to be like. And what are they doing? They're cultivating a sense that they don't have enough, right? that it's not going to be just fine however it works out. Dinner burns, then you got a story, right? It'll work out. Something doesn't show up on time, that'll be okay. The conversation goes south and things get tense. Well, at least it didn't for a while, right? You've got a moment, right, beforehand. So yeah, that's what I would say, our gratitude. It's not just something that you should cultivate generally. It's got to be directed towards the right things in the right way. All right, well, with that, I will be happy to open it up to conversation. Thoughts?